guess that's a nice segue. I'll go into my Dr. Obvious story here. So, I visited a clinic recently, not to see if I'm insane. That's another question, another thing.
We already know that you're insane. We like
wrong,
you that
wrong
way.
doctor. So there's a time that comes when eventually, before most people reach 80, they will develop a bulge of some kind around the rectum area.
Oh, gosh.
We term this as hemorrhoids, okay? And boys and girls, those of you who don't know this, hemorrhoids just... Everybody has what are called like the hemorrhoidal veins around their anus. And sometimes you can have an internal hemorrhoid and sometimes you have an external. I was blessed with an external hemorrhoid that popped its ugly face about 3 weeks back, and I try to take care of my assets.
Assets.
And so I went in. You know, I'm not a typical. I mean, to a degree, I'm a typical guy, but I will go in if there's something that seems to be something I need checked out. I'm not a typical man that just. It's something that's really, really bad, and then they die because they don't go see a professional. I'm not that bad. So I did go in because obviously it's not my first thing I think of my goal in life to see how many doctors I can flash my butt cheeks to. So...
I had so many jokes about them grabbing his ass, too.
Oh, yeah, well, hold off on those.
Yeah.
So, I found this doctor that... It was one that handled this kind of stuff, too, because I don't want to do referring to a specialist, because what that means to me is cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That usually means you go to a regular doctor, and they're like, oh, I need to refer you to somebody, or a proctologist, even. And it's like, well, that's going to cost me. So I just did the one and done. I went to somewhere that's already a specialist in the beginning phase of it that didn't need to do a referral. They're specialized in looking at people's butts. And...
I have a small fetish for it.
That was a separate conversation.
So I went there. And...
Specialized.
It was fairly quick. Of course, it was the first time I'd been there. I hadn't seen the doctor for ages. I mean, the last, doctorish type specialist I've seen was a dentist because I go for regular, 6 month cleanings or whatever. So an actual MD doctor for other health stuff, it's been years. So I'm overall relatively healthy, knock on wood. And so I went to this place, I found it, and I'm like, okay, here's my information. Got me into the system. Made the appointment, went there. And I already did the research because I'm a hypochondriac, so I already, I tried to keep a level head. I don't think everything means, something worse than it really is. But the urge was there. So I wanted to go there anyway to get a second opinion, and this thing was not going away by week 3, which I hear most of the time they just kind of, like a virus, they go, they just do their own thing. But I was getting impatient. And because it wasn't no bleeding, there wasn't any issues. I only knew I really had it if I reach around and massage my butthole. So I mean, that's the only time I really feel that something seems to be bulging there that doesn't belong. And I knew it wasn't a dingleberry because I don't have that issue. I take anal hygiene seriously. And so I anyway. So I went to this doctor, got in there, and he was like, so I hear you're here because you might have a hemorrhoid or something. I was like, I think it is, doctor. Would you mind taking a look and just confirming, making sure? Because I don't want to be cancer or something. And this is going to be funny, but I'm outspoken, so I want people to know this because it might happen to you. It's not an old person's disease. It's actually statistically more likely to happen to younger generations. So, anyway, I'm throwing this out there. So, anyway, I...
trust me, I've had conversations about this with him a couple
yes.
times.
So, I told him, I was like, I do. I think there's, I'm fortunate that I think it's an external one versus an internal, because the internal ones, they're worse because they bleed, and they're less accessible easily without an invasive procedure. So he was just like, okay, well, let me take a look. Lay down on your side. And first I thought he said, get on my knees. And I was like, well, I had to reiterate, like, doctor, how do you want me to lay down on this table? And so,
tell me this first.
well, no, Zach doesn't know any of this yet. So I
He had to like tie you up too.
No,
to keep you secure.
No. That's the other person I seen in a dark alley. I'll talk about that. So
Down on your knees.
So he reiterated then. He said, "No, lay on your side, like facing away from me, so your butt's facing towards me. Lay on your side." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes better." So I laid on my side, and then he was just like, "You don't have to pull down everything completely off." Meaning, he's telling me beforehand because I think he's seen I was ready to just disrobe. He's like, "You don't have to get fully naked for this." And I was like, "Okay, thank God." So I just had my underwear. Normally I go commando, but I did have my Friday the 13th boxer briefs on.
Oh, jeez.
And so I took those down just enough. So now he had the full moon on display. And I spread the cheeks a little bit.
Was there a gravitational pull?
So I spread, yeah, exactly, Shannon. I spread the cheeks, my peach. I spread the cheeks just a bit. And the doctor said, he looks, up there at my anus. He's like, huh, yep, you have a hemorrhoid. I'm just like, and he's like, you can put your clothes back. I'm like, Dr. Obvious. Okay, so that's what we're paying the big bucks for these guys. So I went there knowing pretty much what I already had. It fit everything that I was researching on hemorrhoids. And so I just spread my cheeks for him. If it was anything, it was him that felt like I was making him uncomfortable.
Because you were ready to completely disrobe for it.
Well, I was very just open about it. It was like, Doctor, I think this is a hemorrhoid on here. I'm glad it's an external one. Could you take a look? I don't know if he's been approached that way. Maybe I should have been more nervous. But I was just ready to have a professional look at this to confirm that's what it was and what can we do from there. So once I put my clothes back on, and no, he didn't take me to dinner first.
Oh, okay.
So just in case that was.
Otherwise, you might have hydroaquatic forces or something.
Well, I did think of you because sometimes harder stool. I was like, I wonder if Zach's had these before.
Well, I actually there is something hard down there, so I might have one too.
You could. Oh, emo bros that we're sharing hemorrhoids. That's awesome.
But I am curious what he said to do about it.
Okay, well let me get to that. So basically, what he did mention to me, which is also what I had heard somewhere else too from another doctor on a YouTube video. He said basically those creams, Preparation H, etc., they might provide a temporary relief if you have an itch or something. I never really had an itch, and it didn't really hurt.
Me either.
So they themselves are kind of a gimmick because they do not accelerate the reduction in swelling. So save your money, basically what it comes down to when it comes to that. What he did say, which was another thing I was doing, sitz baths or just a regular bath with the Epsom salt, that can help tenderize or loosen the hemorrhoid a little bit to where it helps it kind of help it on its way, but it's more or less, unless he wants it, because he did say to me, he's like, well, I mean, it's not really in a position where I need to do anything about it right now. If you want me to intervene, it would involve a local anesthetic and basically a scalpel to cut it off on there. I don't think you want that right now. And I'm like, you might be right, doctor. You might just be right. It's like 10 to 15 minutes if that tops. I mean, you don't need to be in there much. Just sit down in that bath, spread them cheeks, and let the salt dissolve and do its thing.
At least it's a simple and inexpensive thing to fix.
Right, but I'm waiting for the bill because I'm sure just go there to the doctor to have him look at my ass, look at my butt cheeks and my ass, and just to tell me what I already know. I'm sure it's going to be pricey. So that's my story about Dr. Obvious.
Why, hello, YouTube. Happy to be here. Remember, catch brand new live streams, Creatures of the Night, on Fridays, around 8-ish p.m. Central Time.